what we kind of mentioned at the beginning about just, being bigger than your problem and communicating well, making sure that you keep a professional and personal boundary separate. Because I think when you work with your spouse or anybody, that you're very close to, you know them very well, they know you very well, and again, those triggers, they can yank your chain very easily, and you can get very emotional about it and have a reaction rather than a thought process and a response. So, working with your spouse, those are things that, you just have to catch yourself and make sure that you're not, reacting to things emotionally. That will take you down very, very hard. And just you keep that communication line open. Again, that forgiveness aspect. I know you wouldn't mean to do harm to me or the practice or whatnot. That's not what this is about. There's something else. There's something very, kind of think more practical about it. No, I know you wouldn't mean to do something. Your intent is not bad. But I think sometimes when we work with our spouses, something bad happens. We think it's their intention to do something wrong to us, and we get very emotional, respond, or overreact. And really, we have to remember that may not be the case at all. Just keep your communication lines open, and make sure that you don't overreact.
I had a mentor. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You go ahead. You go ahead.
I had a mentor who was saying that he and his wife were together for 40 years. They're retired now. They both were scientists. And he said, when they do, they both communicate their goals so that someone else's business goals or whatever didn't overwhelm the other person. So everyone kind of knew where it stood. Remind me of, like, if you're working for a company, you'll have like some KPIs, some key performance indicators. You'll have like annual review, and you make sure that everyone aligns on goals. And I think in a family dynamic and business, those things can be done similarly, where you're saying, okay, what are your goals? What do you want to do to make sure you're supporting each other and not overwhelming each other with what you have involved for the business? And because I think that'll build some resentment in a relationship and make people feel like they're not appreciated or that they're taken for granted.
Right. Big. That would be a huge one. Absolutely. Yeah. I think when you work with family, there is that potential to, I don't know, harm the relationship. I think you can take it. People in their perceptions are very important, as you say. They can feel underappreciated or taken advantage of or used in some aspect. And again, I think that's more of that emotional component that we draw in when we're in relationships with people. If you go to work and somebody at work that you really don't know that well, says something a little derogatory, kind of gets on your last nerve that day or whatnot, you have the ability to just, not respond and just walk away from that and separate yourself from and think, that's just them. They're having a bad day or whatnot. You have that ability to separate yourself when you're working with family or people that you love and know very well. You don't have that ability to emotionally separate. You tend to work in more emotional thoughts and feelings into it and respond very differently than you would to somebody that you don't know that well. You just have to remember not to let that affect you once you walk out the door. That's the way it is, 9 to 5. Once you walk out that door, you're back to your personal, relationship and your personal space. You can't allow things to move over into your private time together. That's hard to do. It can hurt your relationship long term. People really try to stay away from working with family. I think often there's a lot of people who make that hard and solid rule that they will not work with friends and family. I think that's something I've heard my whole life is don't mix business with family. I don't think that has to be the absolute case. You do have to be a very strong person to do it and not let it harm your relationships with them.
Yeah, because like you said, if someone says something to you at work, you might not think twice of it because it's like, that's just my coworker, right? But if your partner or your sister or your brother or your mom kind of says something, it feels like way more of a jab. You're like, well, what's wrong with you? You know me. Why are you talking to me like that?
Exactly.
And then Day, kind of what you said about like appreciation too. I think kind of like what I said earlier, whenever you are in an authority position over a loved one, you are harder on them because you know that they know what to expect, right? So I think also in turn sometimes you forget to give them the same praise that you might give somebody else because you're like, well, you know me and you already know that I appreciate you. You already know that I love you. And so you don't give it as much in the professional setting because you expect them to just already know that, but they deserve the same praise and recognition as anybody else too.